The federal government says plans are underway to sign a Memorandum of Understanding with African Development Bank to resuscitate the Lake Chad region as the lake continues to shrink. The Minister of Water Resources, Malam Suleiman Adamu, made this known when he featured on Forum, the news agency of Nigeria flagship interview program in Abuja. The minister lauded President Muhammadu Buhari for his commitment to the realization of the Lake Chad project.
We've been talking with the African Development Bank. Part of the declaration of the Abuja conference on Lake Chad was that African Development Bank should create a $50 billion fund, for infrastructure fund for Africa. And although we don't need 50 billion for Lake Chad, but at least with that kind of fund, the interbasin water transfer has another angle that you can create a roadway, you can create canals for river navigation, you can create many dams and hydropower schemes that will benefit countries like Central African Republic. We can even have a highway from Lagos to Nairobi, to Mombasa, from west coast to the east coast. It's all part of the grand plan. But you need to, these things, you have to take them systematically. Now we are waiting to sign that MoU with the African Development Bank. We're waiting for them. Once we're able to sign that, we hope that we can get some funding, about $2-3 million, to do the feasibility study. After the feasibility study, there will be need for detailed engineering study and environmental impact assessment and so on. These things take time, but they say the journey to a lifetime begins with the first step. So at least we want to have that first step to initiate this process so that it can go. So we have not taken our eyes off the radar on Lake Chad. Let me give credit to Mr. President. There is no international forum on climate change that he has not advocated for the world to support this Lake Chad project. But the world doesn't seem to be interested when they hear the sum involved, or at least the estimate for the works. And as you know also, sometimes the geopolitics is not in the interest of some countries, the developed world, to see us developing. And unfortunately, we don't have the resources. We had a successful conference in February 2018. In that conference, we achieved two things. Number one, we achieved a consensus. There's an international consensus, not only an African consensus, an international consensus that the Lake Chad has to be saved. Number two, the consensus we had was, among us African countries, was that the interbasin water transfer should be given, a shot at as the best way for the long-term sustainability of the lake. We are on it. The problem is we are not getting the funding. It's tough, but and the other thing is that we seem to have a disagreement between us Africans and the rest of the world as to the best approach to do it.
On the possibility of an interbasin water transfer from River Congo, Adamu explained that the river channels will need to be improved if the transfer was to be carried out. He also called for the support of African member countries as well as the international community.
If you are going to do the transfer, the volume of water that is coming, you have to improve the river channels. So what we now decided to say, okay, instead of starting the project from Congo and coming towards Lake Chad, let's start from Lake Chad backwards. And to do that, we need to improve the hydrolicity of rivers Chari and Lagon. These are the two rivers that bring water into Lake Chad. The same thing we're trying to do with the rivers Niger and Benue is exactly the same thing we want to do with rivers Chari and Lagon. If we're able to desilt the rivers, improve, now a lot of excess water comes and then it flows and creates floodplains. It doesn't go into the lake. If we're able to do that, we are definitely confident that we'll improve the storage in the lake. So last year we finished all the, and this is an international, Lake Chad is an international water body. The Lake Chad Basin Commission is a multilateral agency, so everything in Nigeria cannot do these things alone. We have to do it along with other member countries. With the way we are now relying too much on groundwater, especially in the northeast and so on, with the desertification, about 600 meters, 600 centimeters, 0.6 of a meter moving every year southwards. I'm worried that in the next 50 years, we may wake up one day and there's no Lake Chad.